From the Gulf States Newsroom, this is the Gulf States Gumbo, your weekly serving of stories from Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. I'm economic mobility reporter Stephan Bisaha, chopping it up this week. On today's show, the new pope has many firsts. Chief among them is he's the first American, but he's also the first Creole pope.
There were always neighborhood priests in and out because he loved his mother's cooking, and we know why now.
We look at what the Pope's Southern connection means for Southern Catholics. That's coming up on the Gulf States Gumbo. Chicago has a lot to celebrate right now. After all, before he was Leo XIV of the Vatican, he was Robert Francis Prevost from Chicago. But Southern Catholics are celebrating too, including the Pope's ties to our region. Mississippi Public Broadcasting's Shamir Muhammad reports from the Cathedral of St. Peter the Apostle in Jackson about how Mississippi Catholics are reacting.
Candles flicker as hymns are sung during Mass at the cathedral. A handful of congregants pray. This is the second Mass to be held since the announcement of Pope Leo XIV as the first American leader of the Catholic Church. Bill Phillip of Jackson is a congregant at the cathedral. He says he was excited that the conclave took such a short time to deliberate.
I think it's a great boon for the church that he was elected so quickly. I think that shows that there was unity in the conclave and that the church is perhaps not as divided as the rest of the country.
Pope Leo XIV is originally from Chicago, but his maternal grandparents were Creoles of color from New Orleans. Bishop Joseph Kopas leads the Diocese of Jackson.
I think more people than not would find that to be very interesting and welcoming. Some would be rigid about that, but I think that's very interesting. It shows how diverse our country is in many ways that aren't even obvious.
Kopas says he may have the chance to meet with the new pope in the fall.
From several states in the South, maybe 20, 25 bishops will be over there, and he'll have a chance to meet us. So I'll have a couple of opportunities, but I've never met him, and no, we don't know each other. But to have a pope speaking English, it's a whole different thing.
Kopas says he believes Pope Leo XIV will be able to bridge the gap between progressive-leaning and more conservative Catholics. Shamir Muhammad, MPB News.
The Gulf States Newsroom is a team of journalists working with NPR and local public media stations in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana to cover the issues that matter to you. Email us, connect@gulfstatesnewsroom.org.
The man we can credit with uncovering the Pope's New Orleans roots is Drew Hawkins. He's a family historian at the historic New Orleans collection. He sat down to talk with WWNO and WRKF's Karen Henderson to talk about those roots.
Jerry, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So what set you off on this rabbit hole to look into the new Pope's family lineage? And once you got started with this digging, what were some of the first things that you discovered?
Well, as I've said a few times now, I was pleasantly surprised, like I think so many people around the world, and especially here in the U.S., that the Holy Father is an American. And with a name like Prevost and coming from Chicago, I knew in the line of work that I'm in that so many people in that Great Lakes region, Michigan, Illinois, even upstate New York, if they have these French surnames, usually French Canadian, maybe immigrants from France. And that's what I really was expecting to find. And for the most part, that's true of his father's family, French and Italian immigrants. But when I just shifted on a whim to his mother's family, that's when I discovered first a connection to New Orleans. And then as I saw some of the surnames, it hit me almost instantly that these were individuals from our rich Creole of color community here in New Orleans. And that was thrilling. I come from that community, as my last name gives away. I am a Catholic as well. And so I was just thrilled that the city has this strong link to our new Pope.
Now, Jerry, what have you been able to find out about what their lives were like back when they lived here in New Orleans?
Yes, We know that they lived, as I said, in the 7th Ward neighborhood primarily. In the 1900 census, his grandparents and the oldest of his uh, aunts, the Holy Father's mother was one of 7 girls in that family, were at 1933 North Pearl Street, which is just a few steps off of North Claiborne Avenue. And like so many structures in that community, their house, the building that was their home was taken by the Claiborne Overpass project. The His grandfather worked as a cigar maker, both here and at times up in Chicago, and the grandmother raised her large family of daughters. Their earlier ancestors were tailors, and I think there was one or two cigar makers, all professions that were very common for the men in that community.
What do you think this means to the New Orleans community, specifically the Catholic community, that the Pope has local connections here? And how have people been responding?
We know, those of us who are from New Orleans, that this city is so has such deep historical and cultural ties to Catholicism. I like to say that everybody in New Orleans is Catholic, even if it's just culturally. Our calendar is punctuated with feast days, and even Mardi Gras itself is tied into the liturgical calendar of the church. But I think for Americans as a whole, when they think of Catholic cities, they think Boston, Chicago, places that have these large ethnic populations, maybe Irish or Sicilian or Italian. They don't necessarily think of what they perceive as the big party town of New Orleans as also being a town that has a rich, rich faith history. But we do. He's mentioned that he was open to a call to the priesthood, to a vocation, because his home as a boy, there were always neighborhood priests in and out because he loved his mother's cooking. And we know why now, because she was a New Orleans cook, probably really rare up there in their neighborhood in Chicago.
Jari, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're listening to the Gulf States Gumbo. I'm Stephan Bisaha. To talk about what this New Orleans Pope connection means, especially for Black Catholics in New Orleans, I'm now joined by WWNO and WRKF's Rosemary Westwood. Rosemary, it is good to talk with you.
It's so good to talk with you. Thanks, Stephen.
Yes, I understand you've been talking with Catholics around this city. What's been the reaction to the new Pope?
Yeah, I have to say, when that news broke, my own church choir text group went off. People were so excited about this connection. And then I actually went over to St. Peter Claver. It's an African-American Catholic church in New Orleans, and caught a few people outside Mass there on Sunday. And they were all so excited. People were talking about how meaningful it was to see this really quintessential New Orleans culture kind of represented in the lineage of this Pope. And of course, they were very surprised to have an American Pope at all, but to have one that felt so connected to this really unique history in this city, and not just a unique history, but a really still very vibrant, still extremely important, a culture that still defines the city so much, and that feels so personal for people, Black Catholics are just, I think, really excited in New Orleans about this. And one of them is Cynthia Gilbert. I was asking her, what do you think of this Pope? And already she just only had great things to say.
Well, I think he's wonderful. He's a people person. He is showing the love of the Lord. And I think he's going to unify us and bring us all together. And this is what we need at this time in our lives, togetherness. And he's just so down to earth. And I think I love him, and especially his ties to New Orleans. And we're just waiting for him to come so we can do a second line for him. Or we may have a second line before.
I love that. A very New Orleans reaction to the Pope.
I know, we need a second line for everything down here, especially a Black Pope.
Yeah, bring that energy over to Birmingham. Tell me, what is the importance and influence of having a Black Pope for Catholics in the U.S. Church, Black Catholics in the church?
I think people see it as really important. I mean, when you think about nationally the Catholic Church, it's still a very white organization. The Pew Research Center has survey data on this, and they've found that 45% of Catholics in the U.S. are white. 36% are Hispanic. So we also often hear a lot actually about Hispanic Catholics and what they're thinking and feeling around different issues in the media. 4% are Asian, according to the Pew Research Center, and only 2% of Catholics are Black. But when you live in the South, it doesn't feel that way, you know? It feels very different. And I think to have Black Catholics represented this way, and as I've said, in this lineage of this American Pope, is really meaningful for people. It's a direct tie to this sort of different cultural way of experiencing Catholicism and different traditions that might be part of Black Catholic churches. It just, I think, is a way that people really feel like they are seen in this global institution, right? Like the Catholic Church is a huge international institution. It encompasses people of way more different sort of diversities and backgrounds and ethnicities and languages than obviously just the United States. So that kind of recognition, I think, is something that people are holding really dear and maybe feel like is a good omen of some sort, or a blessing, certainly, I think people might say, for what this Pope could do for the church.
Before we wrap up, I do want to take a second to talk about Gulf States Gems. And that is a series that we do where we shine a light on some of the treasures of the region. And Rosemary, we both live in cities with lots of beautiful churches. Is there any one that sticks out to you?
Well, although I love my own parish very much, our church was pretty heavily damaged in Hurricane Ida and is still waiting for repairs. So I would normally say, come see us, but actually you could go to the beautiful St. Peter Claver. They have an incredible choir there. Their gospel music is just astounding. I love St. Jude as well in New Orleans. It's another amazing, beautiful, beautiful church to be inside with, just a lovely, welcoming, wonderful group of people who go there. So those are a few places you could go to if you're going to Catholic Mass in New Orleans.
Yeah, and here in Birmingham, my pick is, it's not actually a Catholic church, but it is the First United Methodist Church in Birmingham, downtown Birmingham, and particularly the SALT class they have down there, which is supposed to be like multi-generational Bible study. And I kind of felt my faith was going on autopilot for a little while, and it's been really nice to have these kind of very personalized, like small group settings, and something I didn't really connect with before. And now, yeah, it's great to have that part of the Sunday tradition.
You know, I totally hear that. I think no matter what your faith background, when you walk into a place of worship, you're going to get a slice of that community, all different ages. And these churches, even though the ones I've mentioned are historically Black, they have people of all different, backgrounds and ages. And it's like a really interesting place to go just to spend a bit of time with like a range of people in your community and get just that slice of experience, no matter your faith background. I think it's a lovely thing to do.
Yes, and even though this is a Methodist church I've been talking about, they are still pretty excited about this new pope.
Oh, really? That's so interesting. That sounds like a good story. Someone should do that.
Someone should. Maybe I might be a little too close for that one. Rosemary Westwood is an editor and public health reporter with WWNO and WRKF. Rosemary, come back again on soon, okay?
I would love to. It's been fun. Thanks, Stephen.
This week's show was hosted by me, Stephan Bisaha, and is cooked up by the Gulf States Newsroom team. Our theme music is by DJ Supreme. Special thanks to our partner stations, WBHM, Mississippi Public Broadcasting, WWNO, and WRKF. You can find us in your podcast feed every Friday. Look us up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to stir your roux.